Hello friends and welcome to the Weekend Catch-Up Club, the coffee morning show brought to you live every Saturday direct to Twitch and available later on demand at youtube.com/gamertagged and podcast services. Grab yourself a drink, grab some snacks and hang out with us for just the next little while, because joining me today is the co-founder and managing partner of award-winning video game marketing agency Waste Creative. It is Visar Statovci.
Hey Ross,
How you doing, bud?
Good,
You're
man.
welcome.
Really good. Really good. Thank you for having me. It's awesome to be here, and I'm always happy to chat gaming. So looking forward to the next little while to have a bit of a chat.
I think it's going to be a laugh. Because we both obviously adore video games, but you are in the incredibly enviable position of getting to market such a wide spectrum of video games, and that must be so wild and so much fun. And I think we're going to have a blast really getting into what that entails, your experience, your history, and hopefully just having a really fun chat for not just ourselves but our listeners and viewers as well.
Absolutely.
So please give us the full introduction to yourself and to Waste Creative.
Cool. So, it's interesting. When I do introductions for myself, it just depends. How far back do you want to go? How much time have you got?
Right back to your childhood, obviously. Is this like the full therapy session here? Just to get it all out.
My name is Visar. I am originally from Kosovo. So I moved back here when I was a teenager because of all the stuff that was happening there. And I've managed to do something that I just consider myself to be super fortunate, because I managed to combine the two things that I'm massively passionate about, creative industries, marketing, and video games. I mean, my 12-year-old self playing Dune 2 would have never believed me. Or the one playing Prince of Persia on a 286 black and white. That kind of a thing. So I always sort of knew that I wanted to have a career in video games, and that was always a bit of a goal, and it happened. I'm super happy about. And Waste Creative is a creative agency founded with one of my best friends, actually, Mike, about 15 years ago. And from day one, we were always into gaming, and our previous experience was in entertainment as well. So natural sort of progression was into games. We did a bit of music as well, actually, but gaming was always the goal, just because it's a list. We speak the language, we know games, we love games, we read about. It's all games all the time. It has been. I mean, growing up in Kosovo, you didn't have much to do when you were growing up. You could play football on the street or play video games if you're lucky to have a console or a PC. So that's kind of thing.
That's pretty amazing. So your best bud. No arguments or anything like that. They always say never work with your friends or with children or animals. So it obviously worked out well.
Like raging arguments, but that never impacted our friendship. I beg to differ. I've heard that saying, and the way how I see it, well, I mean, you will always argue in business. You should be. If you're not arguing, if you don't have the differing points of view, then maybe you're not sort of partnering with the right people. I disagree with that. I actually think it's one of the best decisions I've ever made is going to business with Mike, because we kind of complement each other. And even though we're both from a creative background, and then at some point I moved into management because I realized that I actually quite like people. That's the job. You just deal with people all the time. And some people might find it difficult to deal with creatives and tech people, but I actually absolutely love it. I think it's amazing. It's one of the best sort of parts of my job. And I had the whole thing of don't start a business with your mate. Nah, start a business with your mate.
Yeah.
Trust me. I think it's just a bit of a skill which gets developed over time to separate the personal relationship from the work one, which is not always possible.
Yeah.
And I think if you manage to do that, the actual what happens on the back of it, what you can create together as friends, as mates, I think it's quite exceptional, to be honest.
Yeah. I gotta agree with that stance as well. It's like there's not often many people in our lives, adult lives, even from childhood, that we can fully trust. And usually if it's one of your best mates, then you know that you obviously have a really good rapport a lot of the time, a really good way of communicating, but you know you're always pretty much going to have each other's backs for whatever, you know, challenges come up on this road of life that we're on. So starting a business with your best mates, you can usually guarantee that you're both going to be fully committed and passionate and doing whatever it takes to help each other out. And that's such a key part of any endeavor, any entrepreneurship as well. Massive,
because it's certainly it is not always easy. You know, it's like one of the words that our the founder of the agency that me and Mike were at just before we started Waste. I was freelancing and he was a creative director. He sort of said like 2 words of advice, because we left on really good terms and became a bit of an overflow agency. So as soon as we opened the door, we had business in, basically. We had work coming in. He sort of said like, look, if I've got just something to sort of say to you, just beware of this. When it's good, it's great. When it's bad, it's fucking terrible. There's literally no kind of, it's all right. You know, like it's kind of like, yeah, it's comfortable. It's never comfortable. But it just depends if, you know, like I like it. I think it's amazing. But having someone to rely on when the times are not necessarily tough, also having someone to rely on to basically not let you be too comfortable, and we definitely don't let each other be comfortable at all. And we'll talk a bit about that and what that means in terms of waste and the stuff that we do, because I kind of think that it's a bit of a unique thing, actually. It's having someone to rely on, someone that just offers a point of view that's maybe different to yours all the time. It's amazing, you know. I find it super useful.
I can imagine that is super invaluable, because you want to surround yourself with, most of the time, people who are smarter than you, but also have the same kind of passion, have maybe a similar skill set, but a complementary skill set. So areas there where you're not particularly skilled in necessarily, but maybe you have a good knowledge base of, but they bring something which is a completely different way of thinking, a completely different background as well. And to have that what do they call it, like a tool in the box, or you know, that weapon in your belt kind of thing, which is you know, good for any kind of situation. It's like building a team like that must be incredibly rewarding, incredibly exciting. I can imagine it'd be very difficult as well, because you're not hiring a team member where it's not your company, where it's maybe like a big corporation building a team. It's much smaller. It's much more like camaraderie and chemistry, and like the culture is even more important, I would say. So for you guys at Waste, how challenging is it to, like, it was just the two of you to begin with, and then you start building this team, and how conscious are you of like bringing new people in that you don't necessarily have any experience with to then affect the balance, the culture? Are they going to be a good fit? What skill sets are they bringing? Like that process, I'd be fascinated to hear a little bit about.
Yeah, man. There's a few different parts to that particular story. When we first started, and up to a certain size, culture was very much a sum of all parts. It's a dysfunctional family, essentially, because you don't know what you're doing really in that sense, right? I mean, regardless whether you've got like a degree in management, or whether you are like us, both creative, and you're learning the management sort of side as you go on the job by reading and whatnot. Culture is the sum of all parts. You read it, you think you understand it, you say all the same words that everyone else says, but really getting to grips with it takes years. Yeah. And size is really important, right? So when it's smaller, it is definitely a family feel, in the sense like, you know, everyone, you spend a lot of time, you get really drunk, you know, like from time to time, you really get to know them, what people are made of, and they get to know you too. And you understand like sort of how to sort of work together and how to sort of make the best out of the environment and the situation. And when it starts getting bigger, then what's quite interesting is you kind of need to start thinking about potentially not creating or defining necessarily culture, but at the very least understanding it better and defining it, as in like sort of what it actually means, articulating it to yourself. Well, by to yourself, I mean to the organization, to the whole team.
Yeah.
And this was anytime we get someone in, and as I sort of say, we always try and get people that have like a really interesting, that have interesting sort of backgrounds. It doesn't necessarily need to be like for like. It just means like, does it fit within the right sort of area, and do they have something unique to bring to the table? That's very much like sort of the way how we approach it. And a lot of gaming companies do that too. For example, you've got community managers that were shit hot lawyers before, like we see stuff like that all the time. And they bring something new to the table when they're of a different background, I guess. One of our business directors, John, he basically brought this thing to us, which has a bit of a wanky sort of word. It's called employee value proposition in EVP. And consultancies use that. Well, I think you probably know, is the value exchange between like sort of what the company does and what the team, what the employees kind of do. And he went through the process and with the whole team, interviewed the whole team. We were about 30 at the time, I think. So it was quite a good time to do it. And we got this document, which was 40 pages, but it was amazing because the actual takeaway were these definitions, these particular words, which were like, be brave, be bold, be this, be that. And then it basically goes into sort of explaining as to what that means for the team and what that means for the company, because everyone has to live up to something. But it was 40 pages long. And me and Mike, we always did it. Whenever someone new joined, if they liked a beer, we always, like on a Friday at the end of the day, we would go in the first week they started, go and have a few beers and take them through the waste way, the culture document. 40 pages long. That's not going to stick. Do you know what I mean? And you're having pints.
May drive you to more beers at that point. How many cases did you get through? That's the real question.
I mean, let's just sort of say that the craft pub in Leather Lane, which is amazing, by the way, let's just sort of say that I reckon they opened a few pubs on the back of those Friday sessions we've had with the new starters. But nothing sticks. 40 pages long. It's amazing. The content was incredible, really well thought out, but it doesn't stick. And recently, just before the pandemic, we updated it. We did the whole process again, and now there's about 70 of us, just over 70 full-time people in London, and then a few freelancers. We did the whole thing, but the ambition was we want to go from 40 slides to 4, right? And we did that. And then we presented everything to every single team individually. We couldn't do the whole company. So we were like, and it kind of means something specific for each team. And it's basically our culture. And we've got 4 keywords, which are basically be brave, own your shit, make it better, be kind. And this means slightly different depending on which team you mean and which team you belong to, because they all sort of see that in a particular sort of way. So we do. Both me and Mike I can talk about this all day, by the way. So feel free to stop me if I'm rambling.
No, it's fine. Don't worry. We don't have a time limit. It's all good.
So then basically me and Mike are huge on this because we understand that the culture is the biggest driving force in terms of, is one of the biggest sort of components when it comes to determining the success of anything. I know that people say that, but it absolutely is true, especially in a creative business where it's all about the people. Yeah. So over the years, we've gotten quite good at articulating what it means and actually, I suppose, developing it and spending time on it in the same way how you would on a business roadmap or on a massive pitch. We now do the same. We give the same attention to the culture. And we basically remind ourselves and the leadership team and everyone at Waste that, look, this is our North Star. We're not necessarily there 100%. It is aspirational in some aspects.
Sure, yeah.
But that we use that as a guide when we're making decisions, and we use that as something like, look, this is where we need to be. Like we should be, when we see those words, we need to sort of say like, yep, that's us kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's been a fascinating, it's been actually quite an amazing thing to do just before the pandemic, because it really kind of brought the team together, the teams, and it was awesome. So yeah.
So how challenging has obviously the pandemic been then? Because obviously you haven't been able to work in person together with such a tight-knit team where chemistry and bouncing ideas, especially for creatives, like myself and my team, where it's different. We still try and connect on like Teams calls, Zoom calls, and things like that, and we do like quiz nights and stuff like that. But it's something, but it's not the same as being in person. So how has it been for you guys and obviously your team?
Well, I mean, it's a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest. There's pluses to it and there's definitely minuses. I mean, you hit the nail on the head, right? It's in our industry, I guess, in the creative industries. The real magic, the real good stuff happens if you've got the strategist, the strategy team doing something with the creatives and tech and stuff like that. It's that intersection of those different sort of disciplines where you get the really unique, interesting stuff. And Benny, actually, one of our creative directors, he wrote a really good article. It's on our website about the water cooler moments. Yeah. The fleeting sort of moments where someone says a word and then it turns into this amazing idea that wins a bunch of awards and stuff like that. Yeah. In reality, it happens more in the pub. Let's just be real about that. But I think water cooler as a symbol in the office, it's I think for the purpose of what Benny was sort of saying, it's bang on. So it's been challenging in that sense, but there is pluses to it. I'm really lucky because we've got an amazing HR admin team. And we made a decision to actually work from home a couple of weeks before the government did, on the back of some of the wasters, basically a couple of wasters expressed concern for their families.
Sure.
One of the guys from Italy, his mom came over from Italy and she was like, look, he was like, look, she's been through it. She's here shielding. So I'm not comfortable going on the train. Yeah. We figured that could be the same for loads of people. We asked, and there was a bunch of people saying, yeah, that's the case. But we made a decision the next day, and then the team had like 1 day to move everything to work from home. So absolutely crazy.
Wow.
But they made it happen, and they managed it incredibly well. So we are incredibly fortunate to have people, the support team is awesome. So they made it infinitely easier especially for us, for the leadership team, for the heads, and then for the team as well, because they just organized everything. So the process of moving into working from home was actually quite smooth. But there is challenges. There is challenges because, as you sort of say, it is harder to motivate people. It's you're not in the same sort of space.
Yeah.
On the other side, people do maybe not having to commute every day. It's awesome. And not everyone. Yeah, commute is it's horrendous in London. And then the other side is also like they've got more time, more focus. So productivity in some cases has gone up.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. There's been good times and there's been times which have been challenging, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, for us, it was quite, peaks and troughs for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly one thing that we've noticed is, the flexibility of essentially doing your own hours, rather than being in the office at this time, leave at this time, stay late, don't, whatever. Whereas now it does seem to be, okay, there is no real 9 to 5, and certainly at the moment, and whether that is the same going forward, I think it will definitely change for the majority of companies that can. But it's the freedom and flexibility to trust your colleagues, your employees, that you just know that, yes, the work is going to get done, but you don't know what everybody's going through, mental states, family states, anything like this impacting them. So it's the compassion of knowing that they're going to get whatever needs to get done. It's going to get done, so you don't have to be on them on a daily basis. Why are they not on Teams kind of thing? Why is their little green emblem not unavailable? Why is it set to away or something like that? And it's I think it's showing that a lot of companies are really great and trusting their employees, and then maybe others are maybe not so much, and they want that visibility, the eyeballs on what every member of staff is doing at any point in time, for I don't know, if it's peace of mind or just to have clarity on what's getting done. But ultimately, if the deadlines are getting done and you're making sure that the staff are in a good headspace more than anything, then I think it will fundamentally change the work-life structure going forward, and whether that is fully hybrid, fully remote, back to, I know some offices and some businesses want, they need to have the in-office culture, and I totally get that. Especially for creatives, we don't want to lose the office culture at all. But saying that, I think the hybrid model seems to be the best of both, where, okay, maybe 2 days a week, 3 days a week, it's like work from home. You're essentially making your own hours, and the work is going to get done because we trust you, sort of thing. But then if it's 2 days in the office out of the 5, if that's the split, whatever it turns out to be on a case by case basis, like those 2 days will be changed. It's no longer just like at your desk doing production. That's like the brainstorming, the workshops, and that will fundamentally change how businesses and office cultures will operate going forward. And as a creative, I think that's really exciting because you know that you're going to do the commute and you're going to like an hour each way, maybe even longer, especially for London commutes or other parts of the country. But you know that you're going in to do something super productive with your team, which is brainstorming, or it's a workshop, or whatever that looks like. And then you go out for a drink and maybe some food afterward. And therefore, you're not kind of like resenting doing the commute to go into the office because it's been valuable. It's been something that nobody's thinking, Christ, I could have just done this at home, like on my own computer, because I'm just going in there to typeset some artwork or prep some files, which I could have done on those other days at home. And that's a really interesting shift that I'd like to see more companies adopt. And obviously, it seems like that's the nature of Waste Creative as well.
It is, man. Absolutely. This is a massive talking point, actually. I mean, we've got this whole sort of, one of our cultural pillars is own your shit, which is actually, it almost sounds like ownership.
Yeah.
But it is.
It's basically the same thing, right? Owning your work, owning your mistakes, owning everything. Yeah.
Everything. And that's the thing. I mean, we literally built a whole company on that. And so in that sense, it's exactly what you said. It's like, it doesn't matter like that you're not online or stuff. We don't look at those things at all. And that's completely irrelevant. Is the work getting done? How the work is getting done is not necessarily a concern. It is a concern. Do you know what's a concern? It's a concern because you have one of the biggest feedback that we're getting is the line between your work and your life is your family life gets blurred. And that's not good because there needs to be some sort of a division because then it's, so that is a concern because you pointed that out as well. When you're at home, you're always kind of on a little bit. And for the past 15 months, I've been on like all the time. Yeah. When you work from home, is that physical separation, is that act of actually getting up and going to a different location. It feels a bit more like sort of that's work, and this is kind of life. This is my family, this is my personal time. So that's a concern. In terms of trusting people, kind of think that the companies that are not already there are going to struggle because we live. I mean, what the pandemic has done, it fast tracks something that was naturally happening a little bit slower.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah.
So not having that degree of trust, not basically being set up and organized in a way to be able to trust your team, is fundamentally going to really hurt companies that don't have that mindset because you're just not going to be able to attract and keep talent. So,
yeah,
it's a thing. And in terms of the mechanics of it, you're right. I mean, do you know what? We've decided to not actually rush at all. So we were like, we're just going to wait until the end of the year. So for now, it's completely flexible. People can do whatever they want. The office is open. If they want to go to the office, they can.
Yeah.
If they want to work from home, they can. In the meantime, we're speaking to the whole team in terms of how do we set it up? How do we set it up so it is not disruptive in terms of ways of working? It's definitely not going to be 5 days in the office. That's crazy now. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And what is the method? How do we do it in a waste way that fits us and that fits the whole team so everyone is happy and we're doing the best possible work and there's little disruption in terms of how it works and the operations side of it and all that kind of carry on. So we're taking our sweet time to figure that out.
Quite right.
Whatsoever. And also, we do have younger members of the team that have moved further out into the country because they've got parents in different sort of cities and obviously they save on rent. So we were like, look, no pressure. We're not doing anything until January. So, and also there's still uncertainty. We don't necessarily know what's going on.
Yeah.
So yeah,
totally.
Yeah, it's a massive talking point. Yeah.
Yeah. So just out of curiosity, and if you can answer this, great. If not, then don't worry about it. So how, going forward for recruiting talent and things like that, are you widening that net to accommodate maybe fully remote, or are you still wanting to be the catchment of around the London area, so they can still like come into the office, that's achievable? Or is that changing the hiring process for you at all? Has it opened any like new avenues for how you're addressing that going forward?
No, we're not necessarily 100% set. We do have fully remote people. For example, let's take one discipline. Let's take community management. Community management can be done from anywhere.
Yeah.
But having maybe like a creative lead or having someone that actually does need anyone in the leadership position is a bit more difficult, just because you need to have a presence, you need to be around. It's not impossible, but it is, there is considerations there.
Yeah.
So to be honest, like we're really open. It largely depends on, I suppose, the role, the specifics of the role. So no, like sort of hard, definitely or no way, kind of thing. But I think the full remote thing gradually is just going to be as this normalizes even more, and as it's become more widely acceptable to sort of all sorts of different types of companies, not just the ones in your natural ones like gaming and entertainment and people that are tech, some people have done that from day one. To them is no difference whatsoever.
Yeah.
I think it's going to become more of a norm. I think it's going to become more of a thing. Like it doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah. I think that's great, and I think like the more companies that do kind of adopt this flexibility, I think it's just going to be better for not just the companies, but the people. And as you referred to earlier, the retention of staff is just going to be way, way higher because they know that they have an employer that's looking out for their well-being. They're trusted. They know that the employers are going to just make sure that they have everything that they need to achieve really great work and really great mindset, and obviously making sure that their families are taken care of as well.
100%, man. And I think like it might potentially even help with a massive issue in our industry, which is diversity. Because then it just opens up all sorts of opportunities for everyone. I'm really excited about that. I think that would be amazing to see, to be honest. So yeah, fingers crossed for that one.
I know. I know. So speaking of this amazing agency, this multi-award winning agency, tell us about the diversity of work that you guys get to work on, because it's very broad. You've got an impressive portfolio on your website, loads of different games, things like Clash of Clans, other initiatives and campaigns that you run. Can you tell us a little bit about the nature of the work and obviously the range of services that Waste offer, but also like how does it come about? Do you go out and pitch, or do you have existing client bases that come to you to continue to work on you to do something different and crazy and cool? What does that look like?
Yeah, man, happy to. We are a bit of a unique beast in some ways, I guess, for a creative agency. So the way how we're set up, I'll give you a bit of a snapshot, right? And I'm going to use a word that someone like Mark Ritson would probably skewer me, but or any of those full service creative, what do you mean?
Yeah.
So
I know that term well.
So by that is because obviously, we all know that it's got like the negative connotations, but we went into it intentionally. So what we've done is basically we're a full service creative, meaning from strategy to creative to production, motion, design, all under one roof. But the way how it's set up, every single department is an autonomous, specialized unit where we hire a shit-hot person to lead it.
Right.
And basically they run that particular sort of units, and we organically grew those teams throughout the years. Started very design-centric, then we built tech, and then we saw the importance of strategy and more of a bona fide sort of creative offering. So all of these things have gradually been built over the past 15 years. So they're like specialist, autonomous businesses under the Waste umbrella almost. It's still all Waste, obviously. They're not separate businesses or anything like that. But the mindset, the mentality is we are a specialist strategy team. We're a specialist design team. So our services are quite unique in the sense that, for example, the strategy team does a lot of pure consultancy, pure strategy work, as well as working really closely with creative and production to deliver something that's much bigger. For example, like the work that we do for Supercell and Riot Games and Nintendo and some of our other clients. So it makes it easy for our clients as well, because they can come to us with a very specific design brief or an animation brief or a strategy brief, but equally they can sort of say, hey, we need this big strategic problem solved, and we also might need all the stuff that comes on the back of those findings. We want the whole sort of thing taken care of. And that's a bit hard to find in a shop of our size. You know, you can find this within the network agencies, and they're amazing at it because they've been doing that forever. But that comes with a little bit of, they've got some challenges in terms of bureaucracy in some cases and price points and stuff like that in terms of the value that you get. So we've almost hit that sweet spot of big enough to be able to handle big stuff, you know. Yeah. But also the way how we're set up, there's just not enough of that. There's no bureaucracy or I suppose not a huge amount of wastage. If that makes sense. Which is funny for a company called Waste. That was a good one.
Fitting.
So I think that's kind of like, I suppose, how we're set up, and that works really, really well. You know, because again, like just going back to that whole ownership piece, me and Mike, the way how we sort of run the company, and we're very much like sort of an owner-led business. We're really involved, but we see our role as support. Yeah. So we encourage the teams and the heads and everyone to just. We've hired them to do a particular job. They are the best at what they do, and we just get out of the way and let them do it. And then we're there for support. We're there to sort of help in any sort of way, shape we can. And we've got an amazing support team in terms of like your HR, admin, operations, and finance. Like they're incredible. So yeah, I mean that's the setup, and it works really well for us. And in all honesty, that's kind of been the setup that we've got. That we've built over many years, is now proving to be something that a lot of gaming companies actually need and like and want to work with. Yeah. So that's obviously super nice. In terms of the clients, it's quite interesting, you know, again, because we started pre-Steam. We started when it was boxed products. There was no digital distribution whatsoever. There was no social media, which means that your marketing stack, you know, like your channels, you have 3 channels. No, just within social, you got 8. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's bombarding with all of the potential of social channels. It's scary of just how much like is popping up. Like TikTok is obviously the latest big channel, and it seems like you got to be everywhere and you got to be all over it as well. You can't like half dip your toe into one of the social channels. You got to be like fully committed with this really robust strategy and constant stream of content to feed all of these channels all at once. It's I can imagine it's stressful as well, especially for, you know, I'm over 40. I to try and keep your finger on the pulse of all of these different new techs that are coming up is stressful.
Yeah, do you know what? It is a bit, but that's what makes this job exciting a little bit, is that constant change. But you're right, you know, and we see this all the time. I think the worst possible thing that anyone can do is, I suppose, especially when it comes to social, is to, I suppose, not have a specific plan for every single one of those channels in terms of what you're putting out there, what you're saying, what kind of, who are you speaking to and how are you speaking to them? And we see that sometimes, not within our clients, but we see enough of it out there where basically you produce something and then you spaff that out on all your social channels. Well, someone on TikTok is not going to react in the same way like someone on Reddit. I mean, all that stuff. And you're right. If you try to be everywhere, it's going to be insanely hard to do a good job, you know? So I think having the right sort of plan really early doors is that this is what I'm going to be focusing on. These are the people that I want to speak to about my game. Yeah. Is insanely, and working out like sort of what you're going to say to sort of them is incredibly important. And I kind of think that this is what's been another massive driver for us as Waste, because we've got our proposition is fan first creative agency. And, you know, creative agencies, we've got a bit of a habit of saying words that sound nice. Oh, yeah, it sounds great. Let's put it on the website. You know, it's a bit of a thing, right? But in this case, it's actually it's a proposition that's, I suppose, happened on the back of the work that we've been doing for many, many years. So all it is literally describing something that we actually specialize in, you know? So that's why we're being very sort of no-nonsense type people. I guess just getting straight to the point, this was a bit for both me and Mike. We were like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, we like that because we are that,
Yeah.
By being fan first, I mean, these days you kind of have to be, right. It's all about the community. It's all about the community. It's all about, and we can talk a little bit about, the whole sort of games as a service versus sort of product-minded companies and all that kind of carry on. But having a real good handle of the community, working really closely, bringing them along for the ride. I think Christian, our head of strategy, likes to say, like, sort of, we don't broadcast at them. We work with them. That's the whole idea. It's not a one-way sort of, it's not shouty. It's like, let's have a dialogue. Let's have a conversation. Let's make use of the ideas that the abundance of ideas that the community has. And you've got companies who do that insanely well. And a lot of them we actually work with, so that's good.
Yeah.
So,
it must be pretty incredible to see how other companies are utilizing all of this new tech, what they're kind of doing well, and because they're collaborators with you, to really kind of learn from that. And also, it goes both ways, right? They'll learn from you and the way in which you're doing something in particular, and they really align themselves with that to then do something that is hopefully absolutely brilliant for the community that they're aiming at, the audience that they're aiming at.
Absolutely. Do you know what? This is absolutely. So you have the rock stars out there. You have the Riots, the Supercells of this world. But then you also have, I suppose, what probably are a little bit more or are more traditional companies. Like, for example, let's say Sega, Amplitude, right, who we work with. And they've got this platform called Games Together, where if you're a strategy fan, the Humankind, I mean, all their games, they basically get the community involved from day one. It's amazing. It's really cool. Supercell have Supercell Make, which they've built, and this basically allows the creators to be able to basically create skins for the game, and it really sort of gets the community involved in stuff that happens in game, and all that stuff is insanely exciting. And all that, I mean, that is the future, right? That's where it's all going. Yeah. And marketing needs to be part of that. So that's why this whole thing of, it's basically, there's nothing wrong with, I suppose, being, if you look at creative agencies and marketing agencies of I suppose, even like sort of 10 years ago, it was way more tactical, the work that we did in gaming. Because, you did a trailer, or I don't know, like a banner campaign, or maybe like a few bigger activations and stuff like that. You had and then that was okay. But now, these days, I mean, the strategy is insanely important in terms of how you approach all the different opportunities and how you bring the community for the ride and where you put your focus on and all that kind of carry on. It's a completely different beast. Yeah. And the gaming companies that are capitalizing on it are going to do insanely well. They already are. The agencies that are actually properly sort of thinking about that stuff as well, I mean, it's kind of going to become a necessity to basically not just survive but thrive. That's the reality of it.
Yeah, it's fascinating because like the old ways of announcing a game, it was like game development was very secretive, and a lot of the companies are still holding on to that. And we're gamers as well as like design professionals, marketing professionals, so we still love to see that big unexpected reveal of X game that we weren't expecting was getting worked on. But now, because we're in the industry, there's so many leaks that like everybody is everywhere. Everybody's like an investigative journalist because they've got a social media account now. So in order to keep something secret, it's practically impossible. And a lot of companies are kind of opening up the doors a little bit. Like if it gets leaked, obviously it's great. It's not great for like what their marketing strategy rollout was gonna be, because they wanted this big announcement and then get the press tail off of that. So then they have to react to say, yeah, this leaked and yeah, it's a thing. Okay, we're going to save this, but here's the trailer now. And I think that's a great way to kind of bounce and get it back into your favor. But whilst it sucks that is going to happen, the reality is that that's going to happen. And the more kind of open transparency that developers can have to say, look, this is a long-running franchise. Of course, there's going to be another one. but we're just not ready to announce it yet. And then it invariably does get leaked. But having that open line of dialogue with the community is so powerful. And just to say, look, of course we're going to have a trailer, we're going to have a big announcement, but just kind of try and be a little bit patient. I mean, I really feel bad for a lot of the studios that are working like underground sort of thing on this big announcement. They've got this big campaign rollout ready to go. I mean, God, the latest Assassin's Creed just got leaked as well. I think it was yesterday or today or something.
Yeah,
and you can guarantee that's totally fucked their entire reveal strategy. 100%. But you know, it happened with Valhalla, and I think it happened with the last one as well. Yeah. So it's a case of, look, it's obviously coming, and how do you get control back over that messaging? And I guess the reality is, like, you never do get control back over it, but you can like just ride with it sort of thing for your audience and see what you can do to still have the moment, but it's maybe not quite that big, holy shit, the new Assassin's Creed is just been announced sort of thing. It's difficult line to straddle that.
I have to say, I actually think it's quite cool. I read it just before I jumped here, and this whole idea that this whole Assassin's Creed universe I'm actually really intrigued. I'm a big fan of the series. I mean, more of a strategy nut, but you know, like, it's a good game to sort of let off steam if you ever get to sort of play by just assassinating a bunch of people.
It's such a rich series, and it taps into history settings. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, everybody's losing their minds over the quote unquote live service model, and like it's the detriment of every single franchise. And that's because we have had so few, I guess, really good examples of what a live service model can actually be. I mean, the only really good successful one is Destiny. And even that isn't necessarily the best example because of all of the mistakes that they made, and the fan base fell away for such a long time, and then they came back, and now they're doing amazing stuff with that series. But it's so difficult. I mean, God, look at Marvel's Avengers from Square Enix. It's having the worst time trying to hold on to its user base. But then you've got something like The Division, or even Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is still primarily a single player game. Yeah. But they at E3, at their big conference, they just announced that, you know what, we're gonna maintain this game for a whole other year. There's gonna be a whole other bunch of content. There's new expansion packs coming. There's new seasonal events coming. And everybody was losing their minds in a positive way because of how well that was done as a single player game. But that's got live service elements right there too, because they're doing seasonal stuff. So that's the balance of really good live service, but without the anchor of the moniker of a live service model. And it's fascinating to see that, like, what are developers doing to not have that dirty word, that horrible phrase of live service model, but ultimately that is like the format of the game that they're trying to push out there, but they just want a long tail of content for their fans at the end of the day.
Yeah. Precisely, and I see absolutely nothing wrong with that. Talking purely as a gamer, as a fan, and I know I think again, like you hit the nail on the head there again. I think there is it's associated with some cases where it just didn't work. It wasn't thought out properly. It wasn't designed to fit the purpose. It was just basically slapped on. Yeah, okay, this is the model that we're supposed to employ. But it works roughly like this. Let's do it. It's not the case. And if you look at the very successful sort of live service companies, like free to play essentially on mobile, like the likes of Supercell, the likes of Riot, you know, it's art how well they do it.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. And I kind of think that when it comes to premium games, we need to get to that kind of level of sophistication in terms of how do we sort of employ those types of the business model, where it benefits the fans, but it also benefits the company, because obviously it's a commercial decision ultimately. You know, if you look at the actual the revenue from gaming, that massive majority, a huge percentage of it is from live service games. So obviously it's an unavoidable sort of progression of the industry, I guess. But look, I mean, Civilization, right? Massive fan of Civ. I don't play it. I've got a 4 and a 7-year-old, so no time ever, unfortunately. But it's like they've done it really well. the 2K have done a really, really good job of it, and I suspect that Amplitude is probably going to do the same. I don't know for a fact, actually. I'm just guessing here as a fan.
As a fan, absolutely.
But Civ, Civ did it insanely well. So you could sign up to a season pass, and they basically they release all sorts of content, different game modes, different sort of civilizations added to the mix and all. And it's great. It's awesome. For me as a fan, I'd be like, yeah, cool. I just get a steady stream of new stuff that I can play in my favorite game. Happy days. Yeah. What's wrong with that?
yeah. I mean, when they announced Jurassic World Evolution 2, again, I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan because I adored the originals. And when you hear that John Williams score boot up when you first create your first dinosaur or you release it into the park, I get goosebumps. And the fact that they're getting a sequel, and that's probably going to have the live service stuff in it, although it won't be kind of phrased or framed that way. But again, if they want to add new parks, new types of content, like the first game had the original movie skins for the cars and everything, like the Jeeps, like new dinosaurs, new technology things for the strategy like format of game, like for you to build your park in super interesting ways. I just love that developers can constantly update and improve and add content to their games. I think it's such a great thing, and it's a shame that it's got this negative connotation all the time because we fixate on a few of the bad ones that feel like the microtransaction hungry cash grabs, where, well, no, not necessarily, because some of the content is really worthwhile and it's really great. And if we can get more of that, then it could be amazing for franchises.
That's the benchmark. That's what we want.
Yeah, totally.
100%. I think for us as Waste is quite interesting because we talk quite a lot about this, actually. Especially the strategy team does a huge amount of work, and we've got a few thought pieces on that too. And it's just because we're kind of in the middle of it, right? So we've got experience because we started really early with your more sort of traditional product-based or single-player type games, like the Nintendos and the Ubisofts and the Segas of this world. But then also the live services, free-to-play sort of Riots and Supercells of this world. And it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting being there and sort of having experience on both sides and sort of seeing, because everyone is learning from each other all the time. And it's just it's a really interesting sort of position to be in, because it is I suppose, an interesting time. It's an interesting time for the industry. It's going through a bit of a shift,
Totally.
And being bang in the middle of it is awesome.
Totally. I mean, still keeping on this topic for a little bit, and specifically Assassin's Creed. Like, do you remember Assassin's Creed Unity, which had the cooperative mode, where like 4 of your friends could be 4 assassins, and then you'd all work together to do the assassination missions or whatever mission it might be, like stealing something. And if whatever the next Assassin's Creed is, it's going back to that. If they can reintroduce cooperative play into this ongoing service, that would be awesome. Like, that would be so awesome. Like, different, and even if it goes like full on like multiverse, Spider-Verse sort of thing, like different assassins from different time periods could all come together as different players. Jesus, that sounds so amazing.
Right?
I love that. Yeah,
I saw it and I was like, absolutely, man. That's your Auditore with I don't know, like the guy from Black Flag or something like that. It'd be incredible. I'm with you. I think that'd be quite awesome. I really do.
Geeking out over the potential of our favorite franchises as another show we got to do, like fully invest in that. I think that'd be awesome.
I mean, I need to invest in finding some time so I can actually play games. Maybe I should invest in a baby for that.
I know that feeling. Although my wife has actually been doing the lion's share of work for our 8-month-old baby boy, so I've got nothing to complain about, really. So shout out to my lovely wife who puts up with my antics of podcasting and gaming and not doing the chores when I probably should be doing the chores. Anyway.
You know what? Now you're putting me on the spot. I need to give a shout out to my wife as well.
Long-suffering partners of gamer geeks, eh?
Yeah, totally.
Oh man! So very quickly before we come to the end of the show today, obviously E3 has a quote unquote E3. It wasn't a traditional E3, but what were you seeing which like got you super excited for as a gamer going forward as to what is coming out on like the new systems, the new bunch of hardware has obviously been out for what 6-7 months now, and also, well, I won't quiz you on the business side of stuff that is coming, but as a gamer, what is like got you super excited for what you're going to get to play?
Do you know what? One thing that got me super excited is seeing more indies in the mix.
Yeah.
Because as a gamer, like, let's face it, we love the AAAs, we love the franchises, we love the high production stuff, we love all the stuff that we can literally talk until tomorrow about the franchises and the big names out there.
Yeah.
But you know, the indies are doing just so much good work, and they're always underfunded. They always like sort of are doing it mainly because of they're passionate about it, and that the support for them has been close to non-existent, really, in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
So seeing a little bit more of that has been awesome, and we've even had a bit of a feature in it because we've got an indie accelerator program at Waste.
Okay.
We're trialing.
Tell me more.
Yeah, so basically we came up with an idea. We were like, look, why don't we, because we want to work with indies, but they don't really have the budgets, which is a challenge. And we don't want to be a publisher, but we want to do what we do best. We want to do marketing, basically creative and marketing. So we went to Gamescom, and as you do in Gamescom, you end up, it's quite a good place to sort of meet people and stuff like that. And one of our business directors, Harry, he ran into this. He's found this company in one of the booths called Rise Up, for French dev studio, led by this guy called Milan, who's absolutely fucking amazing. And he was like, you gotta meet this guy. So we went and played the game and spoke to them, and we were like, look, we're a creative agency, but we're really interested in the indie space. We're thinking of this kind of rev share type model where we've got skin in the game, but there's no cost to you type thing. Is it something of interest? And then we basically, I suppose, hanged out virtually for about 6 months. We just talked about all sorts of stuff, and there was a huge amount of synergy in terms of how we think about stuff and how we are as organizations, as culturally, in every sense of the word. And then we were like, yeah, let's do it, let's try it. So since then, this has been about 1.5 years ago. I mean, it's just been going from strength to strength. It's on early access on Steam. It's got amazing reviews. The game is incredible. I mean, the CEO, Milan, he's an artist, essentially. And you can see that in the game. It's beautiful. But it doesn't just look good. It's balanced to perfection. And it's still early access. And it's recently gone to Xbox. It's going on Game Pass. It's got an Xbox exclusive. And it's been featured. I mean, Xbox have been amazing. They've been giving us loads of support. So it's just been a bit of a wild, amazing ride to be part of that particular sort of, the whole sort of RoboQuest story. And just seeing more indies is great, because let's face it, every time you go to EGX or Gamescom and places like that, it's just a passion, and you can see how much they put into those games. You meet the actual people making the games there, So I think the headline for me when it comes to E3 would be that. More of that, please. Let's support indies more, because we're just going to get more interesting games coming out of there. That's where all the innovation is coming from. That's where all the interesting stuff is coming from. So
totally, man. There's so many amazing indie games which just look so like diverse, so different, and again, I guess it's just the nature of the beast between AAA and indie development, where indies can really take risks of doing something super weird that's going to have maybe a very small niche fan base, but the overheads are usually like, they're not spending hundreds of millions with thousands of developers literally working on them. Therefore, the cost to the shareholders and budgets are astronomical. So it's high risk. They want a safe return. Whereas indies are so diverse and so rich and so different. And that's you mentioned Game Pass, so that's an amazing industry shake-up format that we're seeing for the indie scene and for the business model of Xbox, right? It's like they have the numbers to say we actually are seeing people playing way more diverse games, and they're actually spending more money because they've played something they would never have actually purchased straight off the bat without knowing what it like or what it plays like, or if they would like it or whatever. And then if it leaves Game Pass, then they'll either just go and buy the game because they loved it so much, they thought it was super interesting, or they'll investigate more games of that kind of style, or they'll investigate the developer behind it, the teams behind it, and then that will increase revenue for those developers. And again, you're widening your palette of the type of games that you thought you weren't interested in. It's like, oh, I just play shooters. I just play Call of Duty or strategy games or RPGs. But then this tiny little top-down isometric game comes out and it's free on Game Pass. Yeah, I'll take a punt on it. I'll download it, see what happens, see what it's like. And then you end up loving it because it's so different, and it didn't technically cost you anything to try it out. And then you've discovered a fucking gem of a game by this tiny little team. And you're like, wow, the indie scene is like, for people who maybe are not watching the indie scene, there's so much amazing stuff out there. And that's what was incredible about the Microsoft showcase at E3 is they had a ton of exciting indie stuff that, can you imagine the old methods of E3 where Phil Spencer is on the stage and it's usually The Witcher 3 or the next Battlefield, like, these mega productions, and then a whole bunch of indie games come out. And that gets shown on the big stage. And it's the equivalent of that, although it was a virtual, on-demand video, but still it's that Xbox platform, Xbox channel, all those tens of thousands of viewers are getting eyeballs on all of these amazing indie games. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
It is. And it's super smart, because if you look at, you mentioned Call of Duty. Let's face it. If I was sitting, in the business strategy, in the business sort of team at Xbox, they're going to look at what is the biggest growth in terms of in terms of demographics, in terms of who's playing our games.
Yeah,
it's unlikely that it's going to be the Call of Duty players. It's going to be potentially middle-aged females, or I don't know. It could literally be anything else, but it's not going to be that. So having more of a diverse offering, it's exactly what you said, is just really good, really smart. It's just going to. It's just a good move from a business point of view, and it's great, I suppose, from a karma point of view, because you're helping a bunch of super passionate people make better games.
Exactly. And we actually mentioned this on one of our previous episodes. Actually, it's like indie developers typically have no money for marketing at all, because as you said, it's typically a passion project. They'll have some funding just to make the game, so everything goes into making the game, and then they have to create buzz and awareness for it, but they don't have any money left or any budget. So like collaborating with, and that's what is so exciting about your initiative at Waste Creative, because you have the insight into like what you can do with marketing for this kind of stuff. Like, how do you get eyeballs on this game? And a lot of tiny like indie developers know they've got a great game, but like, how do they get it on the front page of the Steam store? Or like to get noticed for wish lists and stuff like that? Or how do they just get adverts out there, billboard ads, bus stand ads, whatever, Google display ads. But again, Google display ads are only work if you know exactly what you're searching for, but that doesn't work for the indie scene. So how do you get those, the awareness out? I mean, it's really great to hear that you've got an indie initiative that you're fully invested in as well.
Yeah. And it's been, I think that the fact that it's proving to be very successful is going to be great, because I think it's going to give us more confidence and hopefully more people to do the same and support the indie scene. Because you're right, indie developers, they are so passionate and so sort of focused on building an amazing game that usually the marketing plan is 2 weeks before launch. We've got a budget. This is our budget. What can you do? Nothing. Yeah. Nothing is meaningful.
I can buy your game, but that's probably about it.
6 months before, you really need to get in there early, because it is like you need to figure out as to where do your community hang out and how do you reach out to them, how do you speak to them. That takes time. And this is why it's like sort of this whole community-minded approach to marketing is just so incredibly important. Otherwise, you need to have like a big budget to be able to test. In terms of, I suppose, more of a traditional approach to marketing, like paid. And instead, you kind of need a mixture of everything to be able to get awareness and get the name out there. That is the reality of it. Just because it's so complex, it's so fragmented,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it does make it exciting. Never a dull day, ever.
Yeah. Awesome. Visar, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolutely brilliant chat. I've had an absolute blast. Where can anybody get in contact with you if they have any questions about what we've discussed today, or if they're maybe a small indie team that wants to reach out and find out more information?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. More than happy to chat to anyone, especially indies or anyone in the industry at all, actually. Well, I mean, my email, I don't know, you can add it to maybe the comments or something. It's
put it in the description.
Something like that. Yeah, totally cool. And also our website, usually anything that comes through for my name just gets forwarded to me as well. So that's totally cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, man. It's been awesome. Really good chatting to you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another excellent, if I do say so myself, episode of the Weekend Catch-Up Club podcast. A massive thank you to Visar from Waste Creative for joining me today. If you've enjoyed this podcast, then please remember to give it a like, a follow, tell your friends about it, and help us keep the lights on so we can get more and more excellent guests for your viewing and listening pleasure. Until next time, take care.